You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. And hey, just a couple of things I just want to say preliminarily. We have 40 shows that we have recorded. So I really want to give a shout out to the folks who are in the studio with me, to Eli, to Tyler, and to Jeremy. These folks really help me stay on task and making sure that I'm in the studio and I'm keeping things lively and exciting. So I really appreciate that. So kudos to my team. We take a look at statistics in order to see who's really listening. And of course, Madison, my home base, thank you, Madison, by far has the greatest amount of listeners, people who are downloading our shows. But, we've just had a sort of a shift in the ranks recently. Drum roll, please. The next largest group is not Chicago, my birthplace. It's not Milwaukee, my neighbors, my cousins. It is not the Twin Cities. New York, New Jersey, it's not you. What the hell are you guys doing out there? It's not Seattle. It is the Bay Area. It is San Francisco and Oakland. Now, I think that's in part due to a couple of things. We had a very interesting guest, Tamara Dyson. We replayed that segment on the Best of Black Like Me, but I think that is really, really great. So I think that somehow just that rebroadcast at the end of the year really helped. So listen, I want to put a challenge out to my Bay Area friends. Go in to see Miss Dyson. And she did not ask me to do this. This is not a paid advertisement. It's called Solely Vegan. It's on Broadway in Oakland. Go in there and order something. Ask for Miss Dyson, the owner. I met her, I saw her when she was on the Food Network. Tell her you listen to Black Like Me and that Dr. Alex G said, "What's up?" If 50 of you go in there and buy something, I'm going to fly myself out to the Bay Area and do some kind of podcast event or just eat a lot at her restaurant and hang out with listeners. And so 50 of you. Now, how am I going to know? Well, I'm going to check in with Ms. Dyson. That's one way I'm going to know. Secondly, you're going to take a picture of yourself eating something in that restaurant. You're going to post it on Twitter at Alex G Jr. or on my Facebook page, Reverend Dr. Alex G. Or post it to my Facebook page under Reverend Dr. Alex G. All I need is 50 of you, and I am on a plane to San Francisco. And guess what? There's now a new direct flight from my city to your city. And so we're going to do that. So, and to the rest of the country, hey, I love you, and I know you got love for me. And I'm just assuming that maybe you fell off because things were busy at the end of the year. I'd love to come to your city too, but you gotta show us some Black Like Me love. So, Seattle, Los Angeles, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Chicago, New York, New Jersey. Y'all need to act, you need to act accordingly. If you don't know, ask somebody, but you need to show some Black love. 2019 is going to be a great year for Black Like Me. So, so get on out there. And so, hey, Bay Area, there's a challenge. I want to come out there. Plus, I've been dying to really eat at that restaurant. So give me a reason to come on out there. I've got a really great guest today, and I'm fortunate. I say that every week because I constantly have great guests. But we're having a really an important dialogue about how do you bounce back from a cultural or racial misstep. On social media, we're always seeing these incidents of people calling the police on someone or misunderstanding someone, and you just sort of think, wow, that bridge is burned forever. I used to think that, and I had a very interesting interaction with a gentleman named Jay Sodey. Jay is the Senior Vice President of Consumer Banking at Associated Banks. It's a place where I've banked personally for years. And we're going to talk about an interaction that I had and then talk about the steps, honestly, about the steps we took to really rectify that, because we're making it in vogue to talk about missteps, but we see very few examples of how you recover. And I want us to really talk about that. But before I do, I just want to say, hey, Mr. Sodey, Jay, thank you for being on the show today.
Excited to be here, Alex.
Man, I'm glad you're here. So listen, Jay, now I do something at the beginning of each show that's called the Black Icebreaker. Now, typically I reserve that for just my Black guests. And I usually have another segment that I do with white guests. But I'm going to ask you some of the black icebreaker questions. Just
I'm
to
honored.
See what your response.
I am honored, Alex.
Do you ice fish?
I do not.
Okay, all right, good. Do you know what cocoa butter is?
Vaguely familiar.
Okay. What comes to mind when you think of cocoa butter? Is it edible or is it just to use?
I believe it's not edible.
You got to be in a bad place to make cocoa butter edible. Have you ever eaten grits for breakfast?
I have, yeah.
You have butter or sugar on them?
I usually like a savory grits.
Really?
With
Okay.
some cheese.
With some cheese. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
Enjoy some cheese grits.
Okay. All right. Have you ever used Afro Sheen or Ultra Perm in your hair?
Clearly not. I know it's a podcast, but
they can't see.
This is not for that product.
Oh, when you were growing up, did you iron your blue jeans?
I did not.
You did not iron your blue jeans. Okay, that's a big thing in the black community. So I'm just curious, did you have any relatives with the nickname Nene or Little John or Mookie or Junebug?
I did not.
Okay, did you have any family nicknames that you thought were odd or unusual that stuck with some relatives even into their adulthood?
No, I have a relatively small family that are kind of spread out. So we did not have, that kind of closeness to where you really develop good nicknames.
Gotcha.
For the extended family.
Okay, sure. Jeremy, you have a question?
The plastic on the furniture.
Did you have any relatives that had plastic on their furniture?
If memory serves, I believe that my grandparents on my mother's side did.
Ding. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
He got one. So they had plastic on it.
Yep.
Did you used to stick to it?
Everybody sticks to it.
Everybody.
At least in the summer.
At least in the summer. Now, rumor tells me that you were a radio DJ in college. What was your handle, your name? Let me close your eyes. Go back to college 5 years ago. Come on, just take me into that studio for just a minute, Jay. You're on. You take control of the mic. Go ahead.
So, this is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So
you remember the call letters?
I'd love. I don't remember the call letters, but I did a small broadcast in Central College in Pella, Iowa, and my handle was Dr. J.
Dr. J.
Dr. J.
Okay. I like that.
Thank you.
Did the campus, obviously they liked it because they let you do it time and time again.
Well, there was not a lot of restrictions, and I can't really speak to the amount of listeners that I had at the whatever it was 9 to 11 hour that I did periodically. But yeah, it was fun.
Now you just said Dr. J sort of apologetically. I want you to say it the way you used to say it in the college studio. Like I know you didn't just say this is Dr. J. Like this is Dr. J.
This is Dr. J.
All right. Okay. All right. That's put some authority on it. I like that.
Thank you.
So Jay, listen. In a few minutes, we're gonna watch a video that I put up, and this is interesting because this is how we met. I mean, we really met around this video, and so I'll set it up just a little bit. And again, I had an experience in this bank. And Jay and I met around this. And this happened on a Friday, I believe. We actually met that Monday to really process what was going on. And I walked out of that experience feeling a lot different, feeling very different than I did going into the meeting. And again, what I want to show is that we're human, and we're going to make missteps, and we're going to say things that are and experience things that are racially insensitive or inappropriate. But that doesn't give us the right to just write people off forever. And so I just want to show examples of how people really work through some of these things, and then we'll talk about how Jay and I have gotten to know each other, how our organizations have gotten to work together. And I just think that that's important. So Jay, if we both can just take a look at the rant, we'll then just dialogue a little bit afterwards.
Certainly.
I'm about to go off on a rant. If you don't want to hear a black guy ranting, then stop the video now and go someplace else on Facebook. I'm going to do this as a video because right now I'm too pissed off to write it down. I went to my bank today, one that I've been banking at since before my daughter was born. And I wanted to make a withdrawal because it's my money. I want to withdraw it and transfer it to another bank for an upcoming transaction. I'm dressed professionally. You can see how I look right here. White shirt, not buttoned down, but it's a dress shirt. I'm purposely not going to say the bank name until Monday after I meet with the president. I want to be fair, but this is my bank. Presented my deposit ticket, my withdrawal ticket, and my driver's license. She looked at it 3 times. She kept looking at it, and I said, we're about to have some drama up in here. She said, so I see this is a business account of yours. And this is a personal business account I have for when I do public speaking, consulting, that kind of stuff. It has nothing to do with my work with Justified Anger, Nehemiah, Found a Life. She said, so what do you do? And I said, what don't I do? I do a lot of stuff. Because I went there to get my money. I wasn't trying to make friends. So I said, can I get a drive-up envelope for the cash? I'll take large bills. She said, is it payday? No, is it payroll today? I said, no, this is not for payroll. Huh, do you have big plans this weekend? I said, no, not really. Do you mind if I ask you where you're going to take the money? Y'all listen to me. Y'all know I don't lie on Facebook, and I don't lie about what white people do to me in these institutions. Do you mind if I ask you where the money is going? I said, yes. She said, why? I said, because it's none of your business. And she said, well, I'm required to ask. What do you mean you're required to ask? I put myself through college as a bank teller. I've never asked a customer what they were doing with their money. Well, I'm required. So she called the manager over. I said, yeah, call the manager over. So he walks over and he says, well, we are asked when there are large amounts, how it's going to be used. I said, and what constitutes a large amount? Well, show me that policy. So when this happens, let me just say this to my white friends and would-be allies. I need y'all to listen to me. There are white people in the lobby. They're watching this go on. If I escalate, I sound guilty. If I storm out, I seem culpable. So I have to calm myself down in order to speak coherently, because now I am pissed and embarrassed. I stand there and I call the bank president on my cell phone because they don't know who they're dealing with. I dial the bank president. See, I'm having problems in your lobby because I know them. Your tellers aren't giving me my money. So I commence to talk. We arrange a time to talk because he wants to know what branch, where are you, what's going on. He could hear the frustration in my voice. I make them print the policy. My withdrawal was nowhere near the $4,000, which requires them to ask me what I'm doing with it. I printed the policy, $4,000. So I said, I need you to print that. But typically I don't. I say, yeah, but I'm gonna need you to print that. So I just wanna say, this morning is my off day. It's Friday, it's chill, low key. I'm driving around the community. I went on a tour of my old elementary school, Lapham, first school I went to when I moved to Madison in 1970. Somebody in the office knew me and said, hey, let me take you on a tour of your old school. I'm walking around feeling good about stuff in Madison today. I drive around the corner and park. I still don't have my money. Here's my deposit ticket. I'm not gonna show it because I don't want y'all to see my account number. I started collecting cards. I said, well, we'll see about this. So after he took me in his office and apologized for her and said she thought it was the policy, I said, what would make her think she needs to invoke that policy on me? What about me makes her think she needs to invoke a policy? And quote one that doesn't exist. And he corroborated. He supported it until he went and he looked it up. He also looked at my name and said, oh, I met you through another banker and I'm so glad with what you're doing in the community. I live in Meadowwood. But what about the brothers and the sisters who walk in the bank whose names aren't recognizable? His tune changed when he saw my name. When he heard me call the president and say, this is Dr. Alex G. calling. So I just need to vent. I don't need anybody to fix it. I don't need a boycott. Sometimes people of color, black people, black men, just need to vent because he starts telling me about how he knows her. And she's not insensitive. I said, look, listen, I've experienced enough in your bank. Don't tell me she dates black guys. Don't tell me she's adopted black kids. Don't tell me her best friends are black. I don't need that right now. I need you to manage and train her better because she's quoting stuff that doesn't exist. And you need to understand why. And I said, I need you to say it. Why do you think it? Don't ask why I think it. You tell me why you think she treated me that way. And you know what he said. He told the truth. As a manager, I got to get, he's got to train better, but he was very responsive. I know this is a long rant. I'm not trying to get people to write emails to this, but I'm just saying, we got a long ways to go. And if we think that this stuff isn't happening in our community, and listen, let me say this, like I said in my open letter to the chancellor, please, please, please don't write me, don't text me, don't inbox me and tell me how sorry you are. Please don't apologize for white people. Talk to white people. Ask them what would they say if they were in the lobby. Now, a few weeks ago, I mentioned what I said when someone was being mistreated in Walgreens. Nobody stepped up and said, this is crazy. This is BS. Why are you asking this guy this? My ID, my account, I still don't have my money. Now, of course, before I left, they said, well, can I cash it for you? I said, no. I'm going to wait till I talk to your president. I don't need you to give me the money. I don't want to go stand up at the counter. And I don't want her to come here and give some hollow apology. I need you to find out what's your staff doing. Because in my heart, this kind of interaction sets my work back 2 or 3 years. Because I got to get my head and heart ready to ask, how much longer can folks of color keep doing this and then being treated like this while we're trying to keep everyone else from being treated this way? We start our new U.S. Black History class on Monday. 250 white people have signed up and paid for this course. That is a spark, a ray of hope that there are people who do want to understand how these implicit biases and expectations have existed. But today, right now, I'm torn between whether or not I really feel good about the progress in this community or whether this is a clarion call to just knuckle down and do more. But today, just gotta be honest, I'm upset, I'm pissed, my heart is heavy that this kind of stuff is happening. So I'll keep you posted. I'm meeting with their president on Monday, and if it's not satisfactory, I will comment on this thread and I will tell y'all exactly what bank, what branch. All right, I gotta go. So Jay, I posted this video on a Friday. That was 2 years ago.
Almost, yeah.
And you had not yet moved to Madison. Tell me how this video came to, or this incident and or video came to your attention, because this will actually open up the dialogue about how you and I first met face to face.
Sure. So I was in the process of transitioning to Madison. I had taken on a new territory with Associated Bank, and I was actually in Milwaukee and meetings on Friday, and got a call or text, can't remember which one, from one of my leaders here in Madison, okay, that there was a very upset customer, and something that had happened at one of our branches. And so from there, getting additional details of the incident and really just starting to kind of wrap my arms around, what the next steps were. And getting in contact with some folks over the weekend really set up to participate in that meeting that you mentioned in the video on Monday. So initially I did not see the video. Okay. Our first interaction was the meeting on Monday. Right. But to that point, I had not seen the video yet, to my recollection.
Sure. I think that's right. Right.
I really, it was just, of course, moving, busy, going back and forth with family, but knowing that this was an important meeting with, someone like yourself who, not having been in Madison or really having the lay of the land yet, got enough information to know that this was something I should be a part of.
And you drove Like from Northern, you drove from Wausau.
Eau Claire.
Eau Claire, I keep saying, I'm sorry. You drove from Eau Claire, so that's what, 2.5 hours?
3-ish.
And we had a meeting like 8:30 or 9 that morning. So you drove, that was your introduction to your new role in Madison. I mean, that was your very first meeting.
It was one of my first one of my first meetings in Madison. And I think we met at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And early mornings aren't unfamiliar to me, so that wasn't, and it was important.
And it was horrible weather that morning too. I remember it was that real heavy, slushy kind of snow. Now in the video, I kept saying president, but it was not the actual president. It was like the senior executive vice president.
He's our market president.
Yeah, marketing president. Got you.
In Madison.
And he and I have known each other since I created my nonprofit 26, 27 years ago. He had been an advisor to me. So you got the information. Like, what did you think that you're walking into? I mean, did you think that guy was going to be threatening a boycott, or that was going to be irate? Like, I know you read the email, but I guess I'm wondering, what did you picture as you're walking in? What did you think you're walking into?
So, Alex, at that time, I'd been with the company for 11, going on 12 years, and knowing that customer concerns are very important to get out in front of very early.
Sure.
And at Associated Bank, our customer experience is really the backbone of our organization.
Right.
And so having the ability to sit down and understand was kind of my first step. So I didn't have necessarily a preconceived notion. I knew we had someone that was very upset, and obviously the subject matter is something that we want to take seriously at Associated Bank when someone like yourself raises these concerns. And so I really just came in with the intent to listen, to try to understand.
Sure.
And my role with the organization relative to concerns is what is it that we need to do to overcome and move forward.
Gotcha.
And as we're going to talk about today, there's a lot of things that I think that we've done in the last 2 years that continue to put us forward as an organization.
Sure. Jay, up until now, I always thought it was the marketing president that reached out to you, but it was someone else. Was it someone that was involved in the incident? Again, I'm not saying names or branches.
Right. No,
but was it someone from that branch?
Yeah, there was a the person directly responsible for that branch that's kind of sat underneath me, reached out to me initially, informed me that our market president was involved, got some contact information, then started communicating over the weekend, just so I had the opportunity to participate. Sure. Because for me, I'm a very active leader, and it's something that I want to make sure that if it involves the folks that are on my team, I want to be a part of it. Sure. so that I can, number one, take the responsibility for the follow up, and certainly being in this business line as long as I have the kind of the knowledge and expertise to really work on the go forwards.
When that person called you, again, this is 2 years ago.
Sure. Yeah.
Was the setup that we have an irate or an angry customer, or was the setup, crap, we messed up and this customer is upset? So and again, I know that's 2 years.
The details are a little fuzzy. Being almost 2 years ago.
Sure.
I mean, the fact that there was someone with some influence that had perceived a very, very poor experience in our branch. I think were kind of the two things that really stuck out in my mind. And so, and again, we respond to concerns and complaints of all natures.
Sure.
But certainly this colleague knew enough to, get a hold of me right away and say, this is something that you need to be involved with. Sure.
I remember sitting in a meeting, and either you or the marketing president mentioned that you're in the process of moving to Madison, and that you had driven in just for that meeting from Eau Claire. And so the first thing I thought was, okay, Eau Claire, what experience does he have in sort of putting these kinds of issues to rest? Like, what am I dealing with? So I'm curious, was that experience or encounter a unique experience for you, or had you worked around those issues in your banking role?
It was one that I hadn't had a lot of experience in the past. That could have been relative to the geography that I covered.
Sure.
The fact that we continue to deliver excellent service, so those had not been issues in the past. But it was something that was a newer experience to me. But still, being familiar with being a customer facing organization. I had plenty of experience in working through a variety of different concerns over the years that I've been with Associated.
Now, I forget if I asked this before, but were you aware that there was a video that was out? I mean, I know someone contacted you about my experience. Did you find out about that later? Again, we're talking back 2 years.
Yeah, if my memory serves me, Alex, I believe I found out about it either the day that you and I met, so that Monday, or shortly thereafter.
Sure.
If I'm recalling accurately.
Sure. Okay. So I remember sitting there, and you were somewhat quiet in the conversation initially because you're trying to hear things out, and I knew the marketing president. When I created my nonprofit, his name was on my masthead. I mean, that's how closely we worked together, and I was actually disappointed at my conversation with him because I felt like he was being subtly dismissive, like, no, that can never happen. No, that can never happen. And you're asking clarifying questions. But what particularly stood out to me is when you said, after we were talking for about a half hour, you said, if this is an experience in our bank, I am embarrassed, and I want to know how you felt about it, and because I want to know how to go about fixing it. That changed for me the tone of the discussion. Again, I was heated. I really expected more backup or understanding from this other individual to know that I wouldn't just make this up or come into his office to talk about something like this. But I really appreciated that act of leadership because I think that was a turning point. That's what I was looking for. I just wanted someone to say, this is embarrassing if this is what we're doing. Was that a part of your training, part of your own personal conviction? I just thought for you that was a real bold entrance into the conversation, and it took some real ownership that took a little bit of the steam out of the room and out of that meeting.
Well, one of the things in the meeting on Monday that you certainly were able to effectively convey is that this experience was far from what you expected,
right?
From your bank. And I think it's important, whether you call it experience or training, in these situations, to understand this is the perspective that you had, and that's not something that I can tell you any different.
That's right.
And that's really where the listening and understanding came in, because my intent was let's understand fully, your perspective, what happened. But in any customer experience issue for me, it's around what do we need to do to work together going forward. The experience has already been had.
Right.
Rehashing it and trying to explain the steps and those are all in the past. We have to do our best as an organization to as a customer to resolve the issue, and that was my intent going in. Whether I had experience in this area or not, I mean, my intent was let's listen, let's understand, and hopefully we can come to an agreement around what we can do going forward. And that's where I really think the best part of the story is around what we did going forward.
Definitely, and this is such an interesting story to tell, Jay, because in my experience, this part of race relations is rarely told. It's just like, we started off as friends. We never saw color. We didn't see race, all those kinds of things. And then, so people who are out there trying to understand race relations don't know what to do with mistakes or missteps. So I appreciate your vulnerability and talking to us about this, because you're definitely right. We're going to get to the good things that we're doing. I'm stewing here just a little bit because I want people to be able to identify with your part of the story.
Sure.
And to understand that when you did interject that piece about if this is your experience, if this is what's happening in my bank, I'm embarrassed and I want this changed. I stopped talking to the marketing president and started dealing with you, because I realized, we can de-escalate these scenarios by someone just owning it. Someone just saying, you know what, this is inappropriate. So the branch manager did. The branch manager had some owned up to it a bit. At that point, I was too heated, and it was only because he saw my name and recognized it. But he did apologize. So I did have that adjustment, but it was just too hard to de-escalate right then. But I had time to think about it over the weekend. I put the video up. My wife was in Alabama for, I think there was an ill relative. She was down there with her mom and her sister. So I called her after I did the rant and told her about the rant and everything. So I had a lot of time to think about it. So I came in with some expectations on Monday that maybe we would take some of the next steps in resolving it. But it didn't seem like it was going that way. And so, but I realized that when you said what you did, that was a key turning point for me. So I just want to say to folks, because a lot of our listeners, people who are part of the Black Like Me family, are not Black, they're white. And they want to know, what do I do in a situation where I realize an employee, a staff member, a family member has said something wrong or inappropriate? It's not the end of the world. That for Black people, we don't just think, oh my God, I can't believe this exists. I mean, it was a setback. I knew it was out there somewhere. I didn't expect it in my bank. But I think just saying that, that shouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. I could see why you said this. My manager said that he thinks that race played into it. But your personal ownership of an emotion around it, that I'm embarrassed that this is your experience in our bank, I think turned the table a little bit. So I think what happened after that was that my colleague was with me, and he said, well, they're starting this Black History class tonight, and I think maybe you should consider going to it. Because he said it to me, he kind of whispered it to me, and I was thinking, this white man from Eau Claire ain't gonna come to this U.S. Black History class. I'm not gonna waste my time doing this. He did about as much as he's gonna do, but he said it. He actually mentioned it to you, and I remember you saying, "Well, it's like I don't even have a place yet. I'm staying in a hotel. I'm just new in Madison this week, but let me see." And you showed up that night. That night was the first history class session, and you showed up. But now, what you didn't know is that I had already planned to use my rant clip in the class. So when I saw you sitting there, and your branch manager, because you brought him with you, mm-hmm. I walked over to you and said, "Hey, Jay, I just want you to know, I didn't know you were going to be here tonight. So I don't want you to think I'm taking a pot shot at you by showing this video, but this is how I'm opening up tonight." Like, no, I totally, I get it, I understand. But this is like all the same day. Well, and
I certainly appreciated the way that you approached. I mean, the video certainly is, right after the fact, but you gave time. Like there wasn't immediate vindication of the organization.
Right. I said I was going to wait until Monday, and I made a point of not naming
and that I really appreciated, especially in the Black History class, because in a way it gave me the opportunity, the anonymity, to be there and learn and understand, mm-hmm. which is really what I wanted to do, without the rest of the audience having some preconceived ideas of why I'm there.
He's right over there.
Because, when I think about, coming to the Black History class, I mean, initially it's like we had a conversation on mm-hmm. Monday morning, and, as I spoke to earlier, talking about resolution. And so when you asked me, my immediate answer was yes. But the fun part of that experience, the Black History class, was that I certainly got a lot more than I initially bargained for. I mean, I wanted you to initially. I wanted you to know I was serious.
Sure.
That I wasn't just trying to appease you and say the right things, mm-hmm. smooth things over, right. and then we'll move on with our business. And when you asked me that, and obviously I said yes, I think, having an understanding and a curiosity mm-hmm. around what this was, and certainly having the flexibility of having my evenings open,
right,
living by myself,
right.
in a strange community, helped that. But the 9-week course that I participated in, African American History class, I think for me was a level of education and awareness that I hadn't been exposed to in the past. I know you and I've had, multiple conversations about this over the
Right.
last couple of years, but that really gave me a good, an additional understanding of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And, as I layer that into my personal life or layer that into my business life, that perspective helps in how we communicate, how we understand the perspective. And specifically, this is in the African American culture.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we have to be cognizant of that in the various cultures that we have.
Sure.
I mean, Madison's a very diverse community, and how we apply that in business and personal life, in a business setting, it can be invaluable.
I appreciate what you're saying, because our hope is that when people are sitting in this U.S. Black History course, they are trying to apply it to their everyday lives, their work lives, how they interact with family, maybe friends who are different from them. They're sitting on boards or part of foundations. How do they take what they're learning and apply it? And so I like that you said that you did that. Mm-hmm. Did you expect to see 250 people in the class when you?
I honestly didn't know what to expect. I mean, that obviously that day started.
You're just glad it wasn't just one seat for you while my team was ready to meet with you.
Well, I think the perspective I had was, when I got to Fountain of Life is, this is a big deal. I mean, when you have an audience of that size, and you just kind of get there and you're warming up, and I'm like, okay, well, this is something that is I think is going to be interesting, but this is not just something that is off the cuff. I mean, this is a very professional setting for
my team does a great job with the setup.
And in hearing about it Monday morning and showing up Monday night,
right. I mean, this is the same day.
I didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of prep work as to, what is this? I think I got the address details and the time,
right.
And then I arrived,
right.
And then you see the number of people showing up, and I was very impressed. And obviously we went on from there.
Sure. Did colleagues ask you about what you're learning from the course, or were people intrigued that you were doing this?
I was sharing it as I went along. Mm-hmm. The important thing to remember, Alex, is that I was new to them.
Oh,
so
right.
I was not a known commodity. I'm the new manager of the number of branches that I had in Madison. So I didn't have the relationships. I was just developing those relationships. And obviously, as we went on, getting deeper into the 9-week course, I think is when I probably started sharing it more. But again, this is at a time when I was transitioning. I'm meeting all of these new people, so it was really up to me to communicate. They probably didn't know what to ask.
Exactly. Because right.
There just wasn't the familiarity with me as an individual in that business setting.
I think it's important to note, Jay, again, for people who are listening. You wanted to make sure that you weren't just appearing to be acquiescent. Okay, this black guy is pissed, so let me just throw them a bone and go to this class. You really did indicate with a great degree of sincerity, which again, in addition to your opening comment, was very helpful to me to hear you say that.
Sure.
But I think that this is a point that people can really take with them, who are listening, is that you had an invitation to do something that showed an effort of reconciliation, and you took it. You didn't just say, well, I don't know, I'm new to town, I'm just trying to unpack. I mean, that's a big commitment to make the day you move, the day you're really physically in Madison on this new job. Right. And you said, I know I have a conflict on the second week, but I think I can make the rest of the Mondays work. And you were there for like almost all of them. And even the one you told me you might miss, I think you still came to that
I think it
one.
was 7 or 8 of the 9 I attended.
Right. If you had some conflict, but just seeing that commitment of coming and doing something and learning, I think is so important, because what happens with folks who want to be white allies is that they'll hear we're doing this history class or something, and they'll say, yeah, bring someone from that team over here to talk to my staff. Yeah, do that little thing. Come over here and do it. But you came to our site, to our facility to get connected in our program because you knew that it would help you and the bank. I just think these are things people can do who really want to build meaningful relationships, who may have, whether they've had a misstep or not. When you get an invitation to come in to do something to learn, take that opportunity, because you're new. And you're also in banking. People aren't necessarily thinking that folks from that world are going to come to this class. But I think that there are folks who either think I already know this stuff, or I'm already sensitive, or already got friends who are black. and they don't necessarily put themselves in a learning posture.
Right.
And so I knew that you were going to learn things that would help your bank and your personal career, and that it wasn't punitive, but you had to first respond to the invitation to begin to learn and understand that. I knew that it would be a win-win, but I don't think people always realize that when the Black community is inviting people to come to something
Right.
to learn and grow. So it meant a lot to me that you did that. And
I appreciate that.
Sure. No, that was great. Looking back now, Jay, in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about really great steps that our organizations have taken together, plus good conversations you and I have had over meals.
Yep.
But looking back now, having history, the history course under your belt and 2 years of reflection, do you think that there's anything you would have done differently, either in that Monday morning meeting or with your staff, in light of what took place and what brought us into that meeting?
That's a good question. And I don't think there is, as I reflect back on that, I don't think there's a lot I would have done differently. If I could, put myself in the Wayback Machine, so to speak.
Sure.
Is there some more, prep I could have done just to kind of understand a little bit more about you, your organization, the situation? I mean, that's a possibility, but, to me, my personal experience was that, again, here is someone that had, an experience that was, far from what they expected. And my role is to understand, and, as a customer,
Mm-hmm.
my role is to, keep you and keep your trust with the bank. And so what those steps are, I may not have known initially.
Sure.
Right. And we kind of felt that along the way, but my intent was we have an opportunity to learn, to listen, and certainly as you think about the past 2 years is how we grow.
Right.
So I wish I had a more concise answer for you.
No. This is just it's a great conversation because we don't have to have perfect and polished responses. We just want people to really learn from our conversation. I would imagine 2 years of history, and then also just having sat through the class for 7-8 weeks, I would imagine you probably understood the implication of my experience more differently.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right, by understanding.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think
look at this history.
You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And each of us as individuals, our own upbringing, our own experiences, kind of form who we are. And at that moment on Monday morning, I probably didn't know what I didn't know.
Sure.
And I think that's really where the part of the value personally that I gained from the Black History class was, African American History class, was how those experiences over time led to a perspective that I didn't have.
Sure.
And
a distrust for institutions.
Correct. Yeah. And and then you layer over how we as a customer facing organization communicate with our diverse population of
Sure.
customers. That's where you start to get into how we can keep evolving as an organization, and certainly the growth that I had personally.
Sure. And then you continue to reach out to us. Like you said, I want to learn more about Nehemiah and what you're doing, Justified Anger.
Yeah.
A few months later, this is definitely after the history class, you had me come and address a group of your managers.
Yeah.
And I told a little bit about our story because I want people to understand that there's redemption after this. So I think you might have had 30 managers, or
we probably had 20 to 25 managers at that meeting.
And both you and the individual who went through the class with you talked about it. And he told the class, or the group of folks, he said, "Hey, here's how I met Dr. G," and told the experience because he was the branch manager. I wasn't expecting him to do that. So I appreciated that. I appreciated him saying, here's the misstep I made. And I was not at your branch to talk about that. I was actually there to talk about what we're doing in the community and how we might partner. But I appreciated the fact that we got to alert that group, many of whom were people of color, about how we really got to know each other. And that seemed like that was an icebreaker for that group. It certainly, I think it put some light on what you do when you have a misstep. But again, for your manager to tell his experience, not only in the branch that led to that initial conversation, but his experience in the history class, and then he basically pumped it up and said, I would encourage anyone in here to really go through this history class. That was a cool moment, I felt.
Well, and I appreciate that. And the intent was, so we met on a Monday. We go through, I went through the 9-week history class, but over that time period, I saw value in establishing a relationship. So here we have folks that are in my direct span of control who manage others.
Right.
And so when you talk about how we move forward in educating our colleagues, our frontline colleagues, on how to deliver excellent service that is deemed so by all of our customers, I felt hearing from you and your team not only on some of the details of how we met, but also here are the things that they are involved with that are opportunities for us.
Right.
To potentially partner in and be involved with. And I think that was the other piece of it was, we're not just going to stop at the Black History class. We're not just going to stop at the meeting. We're going to keep this going and develop a relationship that I think will continue to be fruitful as we move on.
I've been a customer of your bank since it acquired the bank I had previously been a customer. So that goes back a couple of decades.
Sure.
Plus, there's a separate bank where my nonprofit accounts, church, my nonprofit, where they're held, and then banks where I've worked. None of those institutions have ever invited me or my team in to talk to their managers about what we're doing, even though I've been their customer for decades or worked for them. None of them have come in to say, "Tell us about what you're doing and what you're supporting." So I felt that was. You made a choice to not run from the scenario or the ugliness of what brought us together, but to continue to lean into, listen, you can't just have a I'm sorry kind of meeting and then go to Black History class. You have to continue talking, you have to continue moving ahead, which again, I think it's a great lesson for folks who want to be allies, folks who I call would-be allies. Don't run from mistakes you made. Just keep leaning into it. We're human. We're going to do this. And so we fast forward a little bit. You talked to us about a community fund that your bank has that from time to time, they distribute resources to the community. Again, I've been a customer of the bank for years, didn't know that existed. You and the marketing president told us about it, encouraged us to apply. We did. And actually, your bank became a supporter of what we're doing. We created a leadership institute for African Americans. And we call it, an emerging leadership institute. And we really, what the goal of it is to really help folks, Black people who feel isolated in their industries or their organizations, to know how to navigate, to bring, their full cultural self, themselves and their identity to work. But we also we work to build a professional network around them, because we found that when people are new to Madison and they're Black, if they have bad cultural experiences, they not only leave that company, they leave our city. Absolutely. And we need people to stay here. And so I was pleased that Associated Bank, made this contribution to help become one of the sponsors of this program. In fact, your bank is the first corporate sponsor of this entity. We're in our third cohort right now. We have almost 35 participants, and these are entry, middle level African Americans who are often new to Madison and have very few connections. And that meant a lot to us. Because it came after the history class, it came after the presentation to your staff. So this wasn't guilt money. This wasn't like, hey, don't tell anybody. Let me go write you this check.
This was a year or so later.
This was a year or so later.
And I think that really speaks to the relationship that you and I were able to develop. As a corporate culture, we're very vested in, giving back to our community, supporting community organizations. And, certainly as I think about my 13-year plus experience with Associated Bank, the value of diversity is certainly alive and well in our corporate culture. And in that evolution of our relationship, it's how can we continue to add value? You and I had some conversations about the Leadership Institute and, the concerns you had around leaders leaving Madison, African American folks that are here and choose to get the fine education that we have here in Madison and then leave.
Right.
And how do we keep them here? And I think that positively impacts everybody.
Right.
And certainly as an organization that, we depend on good leaders. We depend on a diverse workforce to be representative of our community here. It felt right. It felt right to continue the evolution of our relationship, and I see so much value in it.
Yes. I appreciate the shared responsibility of keeping really great African American professionals in our community, because sometimes, social service organizations, grassroots groups like ours do this work day in and day out, and the broader community benefits from the work, because if we have diversity that's here, then people have someone to select from. If folks are constantly leaving our community, you've got to try to move people here from Milwaukee, Chicago, St. Louis, other places. And so having the corporate or a representative of the corporate community saying, no, we need to partner with this organization who's trying to create a better pool of folks from whom we can all draw. And if this goes south, we all lose. So partnering with us and understanding that your bank has a responsibility of supporting an organization that's trying to help the entire community benefit is really, really important, because many will just sit back and just say, hey, you guys just do your work and we'll benefit from it. But we have no responsibility of really partnering with you and having that to happen. And with this most recent cohort, one of your assistant vice presidents is in it. So I bumped into him. We introduced ourselves to each other, and I found out where he worked, that he was a banker. And I said, I need you to be in our leadership program. You're new to Madison. I want to help you meet folks. Because my immediate thought was, we can't have this guy leave Madison. We can't have him move here and then just go back to where he's from. And so I think I gave him the information. I think I shot you a text or an email. And within a matter of days, he wrote me and said, hey, I'm signed up for this next leadership institute. And I'm really glad that he's in the program. And he's engaged. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I was very excited because I got the text from you before I had spoken with him, and having the capacity to take this on in addition to their the day job and the responsibilities that go in. Sometimes the timing is just right, and with this situation, it really worked out. And I think it was exciting for me because we get firsthand knowledge of the benefit,
sure,
in terms of what comes back from that learning,
right,
and how that positions our leaders in Madison to continue to forward our organization.
Definitely, because it's quite a commitment, because these individuals are part of our training for a full day once a month. So we use a full Monday, and then we have a couple of social events in the evening. They've got writing assignments and reading assignments, and so employers have to give their staff time off and then pay the tuition for them to participate. So it really is an investment, but I think it's one of the best ways that our community has modeled a way for grassroots organizations like ours and for-profit organizations like yours to work together to really keep this desirable group of folks inside our community. And again, it's just showing the span of the partnership. I mean, we met sitting down on a Monday at opposite ends of the table. You ended up showing up at the history class that night where I'm showing a clip outside, your bank, and then we fast forward, almost 2 years later, and now you've got someone in our leadership institute, and Associated Bank is the major corporate sponsor for that.
It just really shows the value that relationships, can be developed, and if folks are open to that conversation, that dialogue, regardless of which part of the community that you intersect with, good things can happen.
Definitely.
And I know for me, certainly a lot of professional learning and growth and things that I learned, not just from the Black History class, but from interactions with you and certainly, immersing myself into the culture of Madison, I think have really benefited, certainly the development of our colleagues, which then transcends to the experiences that our customers get.
Definitely.
Which is how this all started.
Definitely. I think, I want you to get back to your bank, so I got to start wrapping up in a few. But one of the things that I think that's an important takeaway of this conversation, Jay, is people feel that unless they come from a large metropolitan area with tremendous diversity, they're not equipped to really engage these issues. And you moved here from Eau Claire. That's not an indictment against Eau Claire, but it's not known for its cultural diversity. But you use leadership principles of let me listen, let me take ownership. How do I diffuse a situation? And diffuse might not even be the best word. How do I address and rectify the situation? Because sometimes people try to diffuse things to just prove that wasn't really your experience.
Well, and I think we had the benefit of the weekend.
Right.
So at least from my perspective, we came to the table in a fashion to, okay, we've got to unpack what we need to, and then talk about the steps going forward.
Right.
And, credit to yourself that you were coming from a point where you were willing to have some steps going forward. And, after 13 years, some customers are not always as willing to take those steps.
Sure.
They're one and done. You know what? You made a mistake. There's plenty of options out there. And I'm going to go see what someone else can offer me from a service level. But you took the initiative to sit down and I can only speak for myself, but give me the opportunity to listen and talk about what the go forwards were, which, I'm just so pleased that, we've got almost 2 years of history now.
Right.
And
we never thought sitting at that table that you'd be sitting in the Black Like Me studios talking about this event in hindsight.
Certainly not. Asking me about the plastic on the furniture.
That's right. All that good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think another great takeaway for the non-Black listeners here who are in key leadership roles, recognize when people are offering the olive branch.
Yes.
Like you recognize that I was sitting there. You hadn't watched the video, so you probably didn't know that I did not mention the name of the bank. I mean, they might have. I don't know how that was communicated to you, but when people knock heads or have these issues, recognize when someone's sitting at the table saying, all right, how do we fix this? Because a huge misstep would have been for you to say, no, it couldn't have happened. It couldn't have happened. Again, what readied me for that meeting on Monday was that branch manager saying, this is why I think she said it. And it wasn't because I said, I'm going to call the NAACP if you don't say it. I didn't have them on Facebook Live saying, come on, say it. But I just, for peace of mind, I just could not have that experience and get in my car thinking, is this another one of those nebulous racial experiences that I get in my car and I say, was I wrong? Did that really happen? Was that really racially induced? So having him say, this is why I think it happened. It helped me. Sometimes you just need people just to name it.
And in the meeting that you and I had, I didn't find that there was going to be a lot of value in getting to a resolution point, going back and forth as to the intent of the colleague. Right. I can't speak to the intent of the colleague. I wasn't there. I wasn't listening. But I know exactly what your perspective was after we sat down and you had the opportunity to just kind of lay it all out there.
Sure.
From there, it's okay. Now where do we go?
Definitely.
Because, this was your experience, and that's what I was basing my decisions on the next steps.
And so you decided on decision. You decided on what the steps would be to rectify that or to move ahead. So we've got bankers, insurance professionals, folks out there, who are going to be listening to this. People are going to actually share this with folks who have had incidents and they didn't handle it right. So this doesn't have to be succinct or any special order, but just in summary, like if someone's sitting here thinking something just happened in my office or my branch or my supermarket, and it's come to my attention, what are 2 to 3 things you would say to the manager who's listening that they should consider doing if they really want to, bring some closure and some healing to an ugly situation, particularly around race?
Well, and we've covered a lot of them. I mean, you certainly got to start with listening.
Right.
Reacting and, going to a place where you are trying to tell someone else that their experience wasn't their experience is usually the first missed opportunity.
And I can't tell you how often that happens. There are times,
sure.
again, like I wasn't trained to run around looking for a racist behind every corner. I mean, that makes life exhausting. So really, I want to believe that some of this crap is just behind us. But I can't tell you how many times I've just said something inappropriate happened, and the manager just said, first of all, I want to say no one in this place is racist. And that just shuts the door right there. Now, I don't expect them to start pointing out the racists either. But like, we can't even have a conversation if you've already assumed that it is not even conceivable that anyone up in this establishment could have any racist tendencies. It just shuts the conversation down. So I'm glad that you said that's a huge misstep, because I think out of just a knee-jerk reaction, out of not wanting to be pegged a particular way, that's the response of the person in charge. And I think that that's one of the reasons why issues are rarely resolved.
Well, and I think, Alex, the learning that I had was, in from a recommendation standpoint, it's understanding that if you're in a customer-facing business, that all of your colleagues, top to bottom, have different perspectives. So when you think about internally what your organization does to educate people on the perspective that your customer may have,
Yes.
I mean, that's the go forward, right? So if you're faced with that issue, it's understand that experience is that experience. Understand that listening is the first big monumental step, and committing to, taking it forward and doing something about it.
Right.
For me, that was a journey of personal growth, professional growth. I think education, and training for our frontline colleagues. And I feel very good about the training that we do, but having that experience for me added some additional layers of perspective as to how that training can be even more impactful. When you're thinking about frontline colleagues and what we do to be representative of, the customers in our geographic footprint.
And I'll just say this in closing. One of the other things that you stated that was helpful to me in that meeting was that not only did you want to make your staff aware of the perspective of some clients, but how certain actions or the way things are stated can trigger customers.
It really
as well.
goes to that.
Right. So it's both ends. It's not just someone walking in with bad experiences, but do we quote policies that don't really exist? If someone has two pieces of identification and that's our standard, can we just complete the transaction? So I felt like what you took away from that experience in the history class was, my team needs to know that when you do certain things that are not part of our policy, that are inconsistent, you're proving people's perception of what happens in institutions like ours.
Well, and you hit on something that I talk about a lot, which is consistency. When I think about the customer experience, the consistency on how we train our colleagues. Banking is, a very complex world of regulation and rules and internal policies, and how we navigate that and how we educate our colleagues on how to navigate that with our customers is critical, because being able to effectively communicate what we can and what we can't do in certain instances makes all the difference in how the customer perceives, how they interact with that organization.
Definitely.
And I think that's one of the things that, as I've worked hard over the last 2 years to continue to evolve our service level, and I'll be honest with you, our service level here in Madison has increased based on feedback from our customers over the almost 2 years that I've been here.
Good.
And that's indicative of the quality of people that we have and the hard work that my team puts in to not be satisfied with the status quo.
Definitely.
Good is not good enough.
Right.
And
Definitely.
so we have to always keep evolving in that space.
Definitely. I think one mistake that employers make is assuming that no one brings negative perspective or implicit bias into their work. And so I feel like some of that training in the past has happened that basically just says, hey, I know this doesn't really apply to any of you, but just treat everybody the same. Be nice, be nice, be nice. And I think one of the things I brought up in the meeting is we have to assume that part of our staff come with those bad experiences, those bad perspectives. And you have to train for getting that out, not just giving people how to say no and thank you and make good eye contact, but assume that a portion of our staff, of our team, are carrying some of this implicit bias that if unchecked, if we don't train people out of that, it will play out in their service area. So I think that those are small steps that people can take. Assume that people have views that are unhealthy. Assume that people have had experiences or exposure to media that cause them to think differently about customers.
Right.
And so I think that piece is so important but again, I'm sounding like a broken record. In the past, people have just almost stake their entire reputation on the fact that none of these people I've hired have any of these issues, and we don't know who these people are when they don't leave work. So if we assume just by being human, we just catch some of this crap, so let's talk to people like they hold some of these views and let's tell them what to do with it. I think that that's really helpful, and I hope that continues to feed into the training of,
absolutely.
Of your staff.
And you hit on something that I think is important to mention. If you're listening and have a stake in educating folks, effective unconscious bias training is so critical in organizations that interact with the public.
Definitely.
on a day in and day out basis, because it really does start to educate the workforce on perceptions that they have because of what they came with, right? Because of the experiences that they have, and how we can recognize what we don't know and provide a great experience to the folks that interact with the organizations that are out there.
Definitely. Jay, I really appreciate your candor, coming here and talking about our experiences, going through the history class, supporting our Emerging Black Leaders Leadership Institute. That means a lot to me. But really being in the studios today and giving us a chance to talk very honestly about how we've continued to move towards developing a relationship and a friendship, in light of or despite how we first interacted. And I'm just certain that this is going to be great food for thought for people who are listening, and that many people will share this with folks who work in key businesses where there's customer facing, where there's a customer and we'll share it with people who work in the public sphere, where they're trying to really offer the best customer service and customer satisfaction that they can. So thank you for being here. It means a lot to me, and I'm looking forward to the growth of our relationship and the continued partnership between our institutions.
I certainly agree, and I really appreciate the perspective that we've been able to discuss today around all the good things that we've been able to accomplish and the relationship that we've been able to build. So thank you again.
Definitely. My guest today has been Jay Sodey, who is the Senior Vice President of Consumer Banking with Associated Bank here in Madison, Wisconsin. I told you we always deliver. This has been another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. And as always, if you got questions, suggestions, you've got some good icebreaker questions that you think I should be using, tweet out at me or talk to me on my Facebook page. Share this with folks. Let them know the good stuff that we're doing. And for those of you who are in the Madison area, Dane County, South Central Wisconsin, I'm having a live podcast event where I'm asking friends to come out and hear about my genealogy series that I'm about to drop in just a few weeks. You can go to my Facebook page, Dr. Reverend Alex G, to sign up. It's a free event, but we do need to know that you're coming. So if you're in this area, come and join us. There's going to be guests. We're going to have refreshments, but I'm going to talk about what went into this genealogy journey that I've been on, where I've discovered new Black relatives, but white relatives who are descendants of my family's slave owners. So you don't want to miss that event if you are in this area, and let your people know who are in the area. If you're not, let them know they need to be there. All right. Again, this is Alex G. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. It means a lot to me. Take care.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Alex G's amazing work at www.alexg.com. Black Like Me is sponsored by the generosity of the Human Family Unity Foundation.